Okay, if you are applying for a certain type of professional license, you may have been advised that you need to provide a surety bond to get your license. And we're going to talk today about what are the requirements, how much it costs, what is the reason that you have to get a surety bond, and maybe alternatives where you can do something different to not have to get a surety bond. So in most states, in order to get certain types of professional licenses, the licensing division of your state requires a license or permit bond. Certain types of professions like accountants, insurance agents, car dealers, general contractors, maybe notaries, auctioneers, pawnbrokers. In some states, even hairdressers and other types of self-care professions need a surety bond. And this is required. The reason for it is the state wants to make sure that if that professional does something which is harmful to a consumer, that there is a way to pay to fix that problem. Let's say if you're an accountant and you embezzle money from one of your clients, they want to make sure there is some financial recourse so that the consumer, the victim, can be made whole. And that's what the surety bond does. The bond steps in if you do something that violates your license or invalidates your permit. It can pay the consumer. It can also be used to pay damages to the state if you do something to violate the license. And every industry and every profession has different rules for this. That's the reason for having a bond. So how much do bonds cost? Well, that's a good question. Typically, bonds cost about 1% of the face value. So as an example, if you have to get a $50,000 bond, it's probably going to cost you about $500. Now, here's the thing. That may vary based on your credit score. If you have a very high credit score, that $500 bond might only cost you $350 or $375. If you have a low credit score, it might cost you $1,000 or $1,500. It could cost more money. The reason for it is the bonding companies considers you a higher risk if you have bad credit, that maybe the chances are you might do something that more likely to do something that creates harm. Here's the bigger reason. A surety bond is not like an insurance policy where if there's a claim against it, everybody's off the hook. If you as a professional do something which harms a consumer, harms a client, and the bond has to pay out to cover that, unlike an insurance policy, that's not the end of the story. On a surety bond, the surety company will pay the damages to the consumer, and then they'll go back after you to recover that money. So a low credit score means it might be harder for them to get that money because you probably don't have any money. So keep in mind, if you have a good credit score, your bond fee, your bond premium might be less. Now, how can you get an exact quote? If you click the link below, probonds.com, you can actually get an instant quote for thousands of types of bonds. License bonds, permit bonds, contract bonds, car title bonds. Many types of surety bonds can be priced at. Your video will be back in 8 seconds. In the meantime, remember, you have access to live one-on-one consultation, undivided attention of a licensed certified expert in this subject and many others. We want to listen to your story. We want to hear your questions and give you expert advisement of your options. We want to tell you what we know about your situation and what options you have. Now back to your video. At that link platform. So what are some alternatives to getting a bond? Well, in most states, in alternative to purchasing a surety bond is you can use a bank account with equivalent money in it as collateral. For example, if you have a requirement to purchase, let's say, a $20,000 surety bond, instead of that, if you have a bank account or a CD with $20,000 in it, you can get a letter of credit or letter of deposit from your bank to give to the licensing board that says, you don't need a bond, this person has the cash sitting right here. Now, if you do that, that cash will not be able to be used. You have to leave it in the bank, and the bank will put a freeze on it during the course of the bond period. But that's another alternative. So if you would make, it would cost you more to buy a bond than it would be to leave your money in the bank, then maybe you can just leave the money there. So that's another option. when you buy a bond, what information do you need? Well, you need your personal name. If it's for a company, you need your company name, address, phone number, contact information, things like that. You're also going to need some history as far as your experience in that profession. How long have you been in business? What is your experience with that type of profession? For the most part, bonds are pretty straightforward. You can usually get the bond issued instantly. Normally, you can print it out at probonds.com. You can normally print it out instantly and provide it with your license application. Some licenses require you to update it every 3 or 4 years, some every year. In addition to a surety bond, you probably want to look into getting professional liability insurance. The reason why is, as a business running an enterprise, you may have some risks that happen that wouldn't be covered by a bond. Let's say, for example, somebody walks into your business and slips and falls and gets hurt. That's not covered by a bond. Maybe you do something where a client sues you under a contract. That's not covered by a bond. So you probably want to have insurance as well as a bond. That's why you see a lot of very reputable companies will advertise licensed, bonded, and insured. That's the gold status of a good vendor to deal with. So you can use this in your advertising. If you're representing your business to clients, you're pitching a proposal, or you're bidding for a contract, if you can tell your prospective customer you are licensed, bonded, and insured, that's going to give them some peace of mind that your representation is going to be backed up by a lot of different things, especially your license. In order to get a license for most industries, the state is also going to verify your experience, make sure you maybe passed an exam, make sure you passed a background check. So getting a surety bond is part of the process. Make sure that you get your bond far in advance of the license being applied for, because sometimes they need to look back at the issuing date to make sure it happened before the application date. If you have further questions about a surety bond or how it works, you can click the link below. We're glad to be of assistance. Thank you for watching. Remember, you can access live one-on-one personal consultations with a licensed private investigator, a licensed commercial insurance broker, licensed certified real estate title examiner, also a certified civil court mediator. So if you have a need to talk to an expert in any of these fields, or even a licensed building general contractor, you can click the link below, actualhuman.com, and arrange a live one-on-one undivided attention with a licensed expert where you can ask any questions, get information about your situation, and we'd be glad to help.